I don't know if the song's gonna be DMCA, so I don't like really feel like making that part of this bit. All right, yeah. So, but I do want to kind of go through the lyrics. I listened to it twice, and then we'll probably go through Anthony Fantino's video. We'll go through this guy's response video, um, and then we'll go through Matt Walsh's video. But probably chapter this up a little. All right, so I want to read the lyrics in the way that I interpret specific things. The first thing, and this might just be beyond me. I could just be a silly little goose, but I don't know what Richmond north of Richmond are. I don't know what Richmond is. It might be a cultural reference, like north of a certain town or something. I don't know. It seems to just be generally referring to rich people. I don't know if he's blaming like people in the north. I think it's like I would have that's a big reach unless somebody was explicit about that. I mean, the song doesn't really seem that big of a deal. Let me see. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime's hours for bullshit pay. Like, yeah, so it sounds like he's complaining about how people work really hard nowadays, which is absolutely true. I sit out here, waste my life, drag back home, drowning my troubles away, and that's about self-medicating with alcohol. Obviously that's bad. Richmond means black people. I don't know if that's true. I feel like that's not right. I feel like, okay, people are saying it's politicians in Washington D.C. That makes sense to me. Sure. Okay, I get that. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made of that. Some people on the left are trying to advocate for better working conditions for people, but okay. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to. When it comes to this line, I think that the world has probably gotten better. We just interpret it as horrible because we have social media blasting all the worst of everything constantly. So I think that some of it's like a little bit of like maybe almost hysteria to an extent. It's not, which it's easy to see people get like, you know, feel frustrated by it, but I think that's a big part of it. You know, media sensationalizing everything. Things are probably not as bad as they seem, right? Yeah, I read the one troll comment. Sorry, I'm an idiot. For people like you and people like me, I wish I could wake up and it's not true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an old soul. Okay. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. There might be a level of truth to that. I mean, like all politicians want to have a level of control. You know, you can argue that a lot of them just kind of appeal to us because they want you to continuously vote for them and it gives them power. For sure. I think that's fine. Lord, okay, want to know what you think, want to know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, because your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end. Absolutely. I think that, here's the thing, I think that taxes are perfectly fine, and they help, you know, they help with our society. They help fund police officers, schools, roads, bridges, etc., etc. Problem is that we don't know how much of that is going to the right spot, and I think that's a very heavy America problem. You know, I think that right now the military, we're having a tough time of getting the military. There's a John Stewart segment about it to tell us what they're spending money on. You know, there's apparently spend lots of money on like millions of dollars on crab and lobster and a lot of other frivolous bullshit. So absolutely, I think that I think taxes are fine, but sometimes it seems like they're not used particularly well, and I think that's a government problem where they use it poorly. North Richmond. I wish politicians would look out for minors and not just minors on an island somewhere. Okay, so when I first heard this, I thought that he meant like he's just talking about like miners, people who are mining for diamonds, but not just have an obsession with like Jeffrey Epstein. So the first line is just referring to, I think it's just kind of vaguely referring to blue collar jobs. I'm assuming, because I mean, this is the lyrics. Unless these lyrics are wrong, he's not even referring to kids, which I misinterpreted the first time I looked at it. It just sounds like he's like, hey, I wish they would look out for the middle class. That's how I interpret it. Instead of like Jeffrey Epstein stuff. I understand the conspiracy. I don't know how much of it is or isn't true, so I'm not even going to get into it. I wouldn't be surprised. Parts of it, so that's all I'll say. I think that there is an issue that mining jobs might be slowly going away. We do have to focus towards like more energy efficient and greener energy sources, but we still should look out for people who have generations of their family who were miners. This is one of the things. There are some areas where like, you know, you grow up and you become a miner. Your granddad was one, your dad was one, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Your grandfather was one. And in a shifting economy, that unfortunately we have to gravitate towards cleaner fuel burning energy, we have to figure out what we're going to do with people who have been doing this their whole life without ruining their lives. And you know, I think a conversation about universal basic income could be there. So I don't think he's referring to, unless I'm misinterpreting this, and he's doing like an anti-trans thing, which is possible. But I mean, it looks like that's not the case, unless these guys just spelt it wrong. It looks like he's just advocating. This song isn't even that political. I don't understand. Am I just like hearing it wrong? Did somebody else, like, is there a different interpretation? I feel like this is fine. I obviously disagree. Like, you know, there's no grooming attempt from LGBTQ people, but it just seems like a pretty innocuous thing. I'm trying to find somewhere else that has the lyrics. But I can't, for some reason. Like, I'm unable to find it. It's so bizarre. I'm able to find a bunch of advertisements. Anyway, if I'm wrong, you guys can prove me wrong. But again, it looks like it's pretty fine. Lord, we got folks in the streets, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milk and welfare. This line is kind of funny to me. There's a level of truth to this. There are some, and I'm fat too, but I'm also not on welfare. There are people who milk welfare. I don't think it matters if they're fat or not. I think that might be a little bit of musical exaggeration. I don't think that it matters if they're fat. There are people who milk welfare. I think that there are people in certain areas that end up on welfare, especially in poor areas, and they end up very dependent on it, and then they aren't able to get off of it because their areas are poor, and getting a job would pay them less. And so people are like, fuck it, I'd rather have this guaranteed welfare and make some money than not. I think that people, to an extent, are somewhat like victims of that system of highly conditional welfare program, which, again, I'm a UBI guy, which I think could help remove the conditionality of it and allow people to have more of an incentive. But then at the same time, we have people that are homeless, that aren't getting helped. Unfortunately, the homeless issue is probably more mental health than it is just money. People that are homeless, a lot of them have mental health problems, substance abuse issues. It's more than just like, hey, let's give them money. A lot of it is that they need like social work help and, higher levels of support. But I agree with this. Well, God, if you're a 5 foot tall, 300 pound, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. I mean, based. I don't know. It's kind of based. I mean, was it wrong? I don't know. Young men are putting themselves fixing the ground because all this damn country does is keep getting them down. I agree with this too. I think that, like, when it comes specifically to the issue of young men, everybody's feeling the squeeze from us not properly collecting taxes from the rich and our taxes being used poorly. We're kind of getting fucked in different ways. This issue, I think, disproportionately negatively impacts men who have a higher expectation of working. It also impacts women, but the expectation is higher for men. So I agree. I mean, I agree with the gender generally. Lord, it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is. Okay, it's fine. Living in the old world with a new soul. Richmond. Okay. Just want total control. It's the same thing that we read before. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't really see a huge problem with the song. Like, upon like further investigation, the song seems fine. Probably got the welfare line is referring to how food stamps only allow people to get mainly junk food, and the fudge rounds line describes how he was 300 pounds on welfare eating fudge rounds. Oh, okay. I mean, it doesn't really change much of what I have to say. So if he's making commentary about how, like, you shouldn't be able to use welfare for junk food, I agree, 1000%. The problem, and this is the government justifying it. They'll say, oh, no, it's cheaper. Fast food is cheaper. Probably is, maybe. Depending, generally speaking, they'll just give you a bullshit line. It's unhealthy for people. It actually makes them dumber. Bad food makes you dumber. It's not proper sustenance for your body or your mind. It doesn't encourage intellectual growth. It's literally not good for you. But yeah, this song is fine. The song seems kind of fine. I don't think it's that big of a deal. So, actually, I think welfare is just money now, isn't it? Some of it's just money. Is it even like, oh, you only, like, they don't, like, food stamps don't necessarily exist now, right? It's like a WIC card or something, or not WIC, but it's like, here, you get $50 and you can use some of it for some foods. I think that's true. All right, I guess next I'm more concerned with what he has to say. I'm kind of curious. I'm assuming this is like his follow-up. Let's see what we got here. He's very low. I'm going to lower myself. Hey, how you doing?
It's August 25th,
Why is your audio
2023. A lot's changed since the last time I sat here and spoke to you.
I'm blowing myself pretty well.
My friends and family have asked me how I'm doing. Everybody is wondering if I've lost my sanity yet, and I'm surprisingly calm and at
By the way, the song was kind of fire. I'm not gonna lie.
peace.
EBT card, yeah, sure.
I don't even know what to say, but I feel thankful to be given this opportunity. You know, the music side is exciting, and all the Billboard, iTunes charts, and all that crap. That's great, but what's
Wickets for Monster.
the exciting part's been the conversations I've had with people, and the things I've learned just in a couple weeks about the human spirit, and about all sorts of other things, the music industry, and how dirty everything is. Like, it's worse than you think. So I don't know what the future looks like for me. I'm not really too concerned about the future. I'm living in the present, and I just have to have the discernment to make the right decisions from here on out. Because I think about that guy who was sitting here a few weeks ago talking to you, and the most important thing to me is not leaving him behind.
Yeah, I mean, so far this is all fine. I don't really see the hysteria over this song. I mean, I can't wait to see what Anthony Fantino has to say, because I thought the song was pretty good. It's just a general vague frustration thing. It's whatever.
I don't want to go on some roller coaster ride and come off a different person.
True that.
If there is anything for me to address at all with you, it's that it's the one thing that has bothered me is seeing people wrap politics up into this. I'm disappointed to see, like, it's aggravating seeing people on conservative news try to identify with me like I'm one of them.
That's funny. I like that. Yeah, I mean, the song is like somewhat political in the sense that it criticizes politicians, but in general, I didn't necessarily get the super big idea that it was like anti-democrat. It just kind of seemed like normal. I don't know, like normal shit. Like,
it's aggravating seeing certain musicians and politicians act like we're buddies and act like we're fighting the same.
My understanding is he's specifically criticizing like the RNC for being like, oh, they played there. I think they played his song at the debate, and they're kind of, you know, going ballistic over it. Like, see, look, blah 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 blah, and they're making it a very political, and they're like, he stands with us kind of a deal. When it seems like he just kind of made it a song venting frustrations.
Struggle here, like it was trying to present the same message. I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and I tried to be polite to everybody, and I've talked to hundreds of people the last 2 weeks. But it seems like certain people want to just ride the attention of the song to maybe make them their own selves relevant, and that's aggravating as hell. The other thing that I find aggravating is, like, it was funny seeing my song it was funny seeing it at the presidential debate, because it's like I wrote that song about those people, you know. So for them to have to sit there and listen to that cracks me up.
That's funny.
But it was funny kind of seeing the response to it. Like, that song has nothing to do with Joe Biden, you know? It's a lot bigger than Joe Biden. That song's written about the people on that stage, and a lot more too, not just them. But
yeah, man, this kind of just seems like I think people heard, like, I guess you consider him like a redneck. It's like a country song and they instantly assumed the twang was like anti-democrat. And like I'm not gonna lie, like initially had like thought that too. It helped reading through the lyrics. But yeah, man, it just kind of seems like the next step is that we got people on both sides being like, yo, the government just kind of sucks. It's like, yeah, it does, right? Like, that's kind of just seems like what this is. And the song was good. I don't give a fuck.
But definitely them. It's cool seeing some of my other music come out, because people are, I guess, starting to appreciate and understand what it is I'm really trying to say. It's hard to get a message out about your political ideology or your belief about the world in 3 minutes and some change. But I do hate to see that song being weaponized. Like, I see the right trying to characterize me as one of their own, and I see the left trying to discredit me I guess in retaliation, that shit's got to stop. If you watch the response videos on YouTube to the song, it's not conservative people responding to the song. It's not even necessarily Americans responding to the song. I don't know that I've seen anything get such positive response from such a diverse group of people.
I mean, I don't know if you're trolling right now, but saying, hey, man, why don't we talk about the murder, rap, and drill in New York and Chicago that breeds violence? I mean, it's a little based. I don't know if you're trolling me, but you're kind of right. I mean, we're considered, I don't know. I'm seeing people reference this as possibly being like a super anti-government or anti-democrat or whatever video and like bad for society. And, you know, obviously sensationalized. But then it is like, okay, well, what about any music that advocates or glorifies violence in general? Like, how come we're not talking about that? But we certainly are sitting here having a debate about this song. You know what I mean? It feels like it's almost potentially racist for people on the left to not criticize dangerous like drill rap music. You know, what is it like? You're just afraid like of black people hating you or something? I feel like most black people probably agree. Like, yeah, it's not good. I mean, you know, that kind of music was born of like impoverished systemic conditions, and it's just a cycle that perpetuates itself now. So why not be like, yeah, it's not really good. You know, I'm not saying to ban it, but I'm saying that obviously it's a little more complicated. Yeah.
And I think that terrifies the people that I sing about in that song. And they've done everything they can the last 2 weeks to make me look like a fool, to spin my words, to try to stick me in a political bucket.
And I know it has an impact because, like, I know this is crazy, but like, bro, there's I think studies about how cocomelon has negative impacts on children. Like, I've listened to music before, and I'll listen to like some hype like thrash metal, and I'll get like aggressive. So I know music has an impact on people. I know media fundamentally has an impact on people. So it's like, you know, I get it. And hey, you know what? Like, I mean, we talk about that thrash music that makes me feel a little aggressive sometimes too. Why not? I mean, maybe there's a level of truth to that too. You know, that's probably not good. We listen to that shit. So yeah.
And they can keep trying, but I'm just going to keep on writing. And I've got a lot of words to put down on paper, and I've got a lot of songs to put to chords, and I don't know what my music career is going to look like. I don't know how many shows I'm going to do and how many tours I'm going to put on.
I think about the same, basically the same stuff that goes into metal music. That's bad too. They also shouldn't be glorifying that. So that's probably why a bunch of fucking white kids shoot up schools. I mean, I don't know. Sure.
I am going to stay true to my word.
I think that there's possibly more of a focus on things like drill rap, because of like some kind of racial bias where we don't look at other music that maybe white people tend to lean towards. But there is still something to criticize about some dangerous forms of music. Regardless, we just might focus on ones that are like non-white more because of like white supremacy, right? But like maybe, you know,
I'm going to write, produce, and distribute authentic music that represents people,
cool.
And not politics. I do feel compelled to address something. Since I have addressed the conservatives, I do need to address the left as well, because they're sending a message out that initial song that sort of shot me up the radar, Richmond, North of Richmond, is an attack against the poor.
I didn't see that as an attack against the poor. I thought it was like a criticism against some people on welfare. That's how I thought about it. But like, I don't think that that's necessarily negative, and it's like a system issue. You know what I mean?
Listen to my other music. It's obvious that all of my songs that reference class defend the poor. Doggone, it's a good example of that. Needles in the street, folks hardly surviving on sidewalks next to highways full of cars self-driving. The poor keep hurting and the rich keep thriving. It's like, that's what I like to sing about. And, you know, the English language is interpretive, and so I do understand, like, there may be some people who misunderstood my words in Richmond, North of Richmond. But I've got to be clear that my message, like with any of my songs, it references the inefficiencies of the government because of the politicians within it that are engulfed in bribes and extortion. And, you know, the words say that there's people on the street with nothing to eat and the obese milking welfare. That references a news article I read earlier this summer that adolescent kids in Richmond are missing meals over the summer because their parents can't afford to feed them and they're not in school to eat cafeteria lunch. And meanwhile, I think like 30 or 40% of the food bought with welfare or EBT money is in a classification of like snack food and soda. I think 10% spent on soda, and
well, I think that part of that problem too is if you think about it, like junk food is going to be more accessible. You know, there are areas that have food deserts where like there aren't really any supermarkets there, but then you're always got some kind of a convenience store that is somewhat accessible, and you can go in there and you could use EBT. And instead of the government trying to figure out a way how they can expand supermarkets to be more accessible to people, which could be hard, but again, I think a UBI would help a lot of that. It's like, yeah, let's just put EBT and have like, you can just go to like 7-Eleven, because it's true. I think that there's probably a level of truth to that as well. I think I need this.
I want to say like 20 or 30% spent on junk food. And that's not the fault of those people. Welfare only makes up a small percentage of our budget. You know, we can fuel a proxy war in a foreign land, but we can't take care of our own. That's all the song's trying to say.
Yeah, just to be clear, generally speaking, he's not wrong about fueling a proxy war. Like, it's not that we do that. If we're specifically talking about Ukraine, like, we're not fueling that proxy war. It's going to be very clear. Like, we are like, Russia has historically been like starving Ukrainians out of Ukraine and then implanting Russians to say, no, we deserve this land. So just to be very clear, if he's referencing that, I don't think that this is like a horrible thing. I don't think that he's like a horrible person if doesn't necessarily know that. I just think that it's worth bringing that up just to be very explicitly clear.
It's just saying that the government takes people who are needy dependent and makes them needy independent.
Sure.
And at some point I will dissect all my lyrics of all my songs if that's what I need to do. I mean, 30-some million people understood what I was saying, but it only takes a few to try to derail the train, you know, to try to send out false narratives. And I'm sure there'll be more of that to come. It's like, it's driving people crazy to see the unity that's come from this, from all walks. This isn't a Republican and Democrat thing. This isn't even a United States thing. Like, this has been a global response. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Go on YouTube and watch all the response videos, you know? And don't shoot the messenger. Like, I'm a nobody. It's my belief that divine intervention has put me in this position in this point in time to get a message across, and that's all there is to it. Like, I'm nobody special. You know, I feel terrible almost that I've been put in this place, because there are a lot of artists and musicians out there that are far more talented, that have put in way more hours than me. Like, I don't deserve to sit in the top 5 places on the iTunes charts. And the truth is, I really could give a shit less about the iTunes charts. What I care about is connecting with people. What I care about is I don't know what this country is going to look like in 10 or 20 years if things don't change. I don't know what this world's going to look like. And like, something has to be done about it, you know? There's been too many people die. There's been too many people sacrifice everything they've had. People die before they're even 18, you know? Sure. Just for us to all sit here and just do the stupid shit it is that we do every day that keeps us all beat down and divided. Like, that's what I want to see stop. And I'm going to do everything I can to influence that at all costs. Even if it does throw my world upside down, it's well worth it. But for now, I'm hanging in there, and I'm doing what I can. And I really appreciate everybody who's along for the ride. So there's a lot more to come, and I'm excited for it. And I'll see you on the next one.
A lot more to come. All right. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, everything. I agree with like everything he's saying. So let me turn myself back up, and then we're gonna do the next segment here. I want to watch Anthony Fantino's video about this real quick.
Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well. Let's talk about the right wing's new favorite country song. Comes from an artist named Oliver Anthony, somebody who a year ago most music publications would probably just say is an unknown singer-songwriter. He hails from Virginia, a town called Farmville, for that matter. Guy recently released...
I used to play Farmville all the time. As to why we're watching this one specifically, is people sent this to me, asked me to watch. Like, this was a string of things that somebody had sent to ask me to watch. So.
Released a track named Richmond North of Richmond, and this song has been going mega viral. Not just among the sort of psychotic, bigoted, weirdo conservative influencers that, you know, typically will platform dudes like Tom McDonald whenever they see him in a music video jumping on a tank to be like, yeah, America is awesome, yeah. Even though he's like a Canadian grifter, but I digress. No, this track has been going super viral just about everywhere. This isn't just some kind of weird Trump rap that has no impact or influence on anything, and idiots who don't understand how the music industry works are freaking out because, oh my god, it's #1 on iTunes. Nobody buys music on iTunes anymore. It's like bragging about being the most popular product sold in a store that nobody goes to. But no, this Oliver Anthony song has been getting exposure well beyond that, doing slightly bigger numbers than some mainstream artists get on new singles and music videos, and also spreading pretty far and wide on streaming platforms too. I was going to do a reaction to the track, but honestly, the performance is pretty straightforward, pretty dry. It's just some acoustic guitar, some vocals. The singing isn't the greatest.
All right, listen. What?
I've ever heard, but it is good. And the playing isn't.
I just don't like this guy. Like, I understand he's meant to be super critical, but Anthony he's a negative. You're a negative Nancy.
Really what I'm trying to critique or pull apart here anyway. I figured this video might go down better or might make more sense if I just kind of go over the lyrics of the song and try to dissect what it's getting at exactly, because that sort of seems to be the heart of why it's resonating with so many people. All right, let's start in on these lyrics and see what exactly Oliver Anthony is getting at. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay. So I can sit here and waste my life, drag back home, and drown my troubles away, which is not a bad sentiment to express on any song, really. Just kind of sounds like struggles personally with depression, working class woes, not being paid enough. Moving into the pre-chorus, it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is. The way he's kind of inviting the audience into the song to relate with what he's going through, it almost has, you know, like a Woody Guthrie type quality to it. It's very, you know, I'm breaking the fourth wall and communicating directly with you. That's one of the powerful and significant hallmarks of folk music generally. As far as the writing and the messaging goes so far, Oliver Anthony is making really good use of these tropes, these themes, these mechanisms by which, you know, old world singer-songwriters would try to give perspective to average everyday listeners and also validate their experiences too. Moving into the chorus.
Well, I mean, I will say, you know, it's an interesting way he looks at it, and I don't necessarily disagree. I could see why this bald guy is popular. He's got an interesting perspective on some of these things.
Here, living in the new world with an old soul, these rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Want to know what you think, want to know what you do, and they don't think you
go through some country singer. I assumed that. I just don't know. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, but I know that you do, because your dollar ain't shit and it's taxed to no end because these rich men north of Richmond. Okay, now this is interesting right here. This is interesting framing and lyricism, because he's putting some very old and ignorant tropes down in a way that is super subtle, artfully subtle, to the point where I think most people wouldn't pick up on it or would be able to, like, you know, write off accusations of, like,
only a smart guy could figure this out.
Whatever the mindset, perspective, or, you know, political leanings of this track are. Again, at this point, given the words he's chosen to write the song with, I think a lot of people would just say, well, yeah, he's just singing about working class struggle for country music fans. He's just getting down on their level. That's all he's doing.
Because originally I had a little bit of terminally online brain and I interpreted this like online. But if you take it offline, like, everybody bitches about this shit. Democrats and Republicans are constantly bitching about this fucking shit. About taxes not getting used correctly. Like, that's a huge reason why people are annoyed with taxes.
But, like, pay attention to the line that the title is named after. He's drawing lines there, not just class lines, as he's framing himself and everybody else listening to and relating to the song as poor and your average person, working class. Mind you, this guy, like, lives on 90 acres from what I understand, but that's neither here nor there. Or maybe it is, whatever. But more specifically, he's drawing a geographical line here as well, between north and south, using Richmond, Virginia as that dividing line. With that, you can't ignore.
Yeah, sure, maybe. It's possible. I'm assuming this is a map. Is this a map? If he's talking about north of, like, Virginia here, like, yeah, you could... Listen, there's two different interpretations. But we already heard him talk about this. This was August 14th that Anthony made this video, and the other guy posted this video, I think, a couple days ago.
Hey there.
Yeah, 2 days ago. So I'm not going to fault him for thinking this... Like, what I would argue is incorrect. I don't think his interpretation's right, but that's my first interpretation too. Like, it sounds like he's drawing a line between the North and South, criticizing the North Democrats and jerking off the South Republicans. That's what my initial thought of as well. Sure, but he came out and he condemned the RNC or the Republican, the Republicans for trying to make it seem like the song was about them when it wasn't. So I understand the interpretation. I understand the interpretation, but again, I don't know that it's. I don't think, because if you really wanted to reach, you could say like, oh, like, see, this is a this is some kind of like almost like pro-Southern, like pro-slavery thing. If you really got deep into it, I don't think that that's what it is. But again, we have clarification from the guy, and at the point that Anthony made this video, he doesn't have that clarification.
North and South, using Richmond, Virginia as that dividing line. With that, you can't ignore the elephant in the room. You know, he's like bringing up old, bitter North-South ideological disconnections that go back to the Civil War era. Drawing this North-South line and claiming that, you know, it's those people from the North that want to control us and tell us what to do. There's a lot of really bad and toxic and often bigoted political baggage that comes with, you know, that North v South binary. And also on top of it, it literally has nothing to do with the economic struggles that he's singing about in the first portion of the song. Rich men north of Richmond are not the sole reason that you're struggling economically. It's the exploitative and solely profit-driven market system we currently live under, which is hurting everyone all over the country, regardless of what side of the Mason-Dixon line you land on. Okay, let's move on to the second verse here, because I hear that's where things start to get a little spicy. I wish politicians would look out for minors, and not just minors on an island somewhere. While in the abstract, this is not a bad thing to bring up, often when the rubber hits the road, the people who are the loudest on this topic seem to turn a blind eye when some of their favorite figures kind of get caught with their hand in the cookie jar. So that's an interesting line that's kind of at war with itself in a way. Also, the next one, because Lord, we got folk.
I don't think it's a. I don't. Well, okay. So he's thinking it's at war with itself because he thinks that this isn't. He thinks this is an anti-democrat thing. But again, even in his interpretation here, it says minors with an ER, right? So a minor with an ER is somebody mining for things. I don't think it has anything to do with like some anti-LGBTQ shit.
Folks in the street ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. Him whining about obese people milking welfare, one of the oldest right-wing cries of wolf that there ever was.
Listen, I mean, I have to be charitable, because again, he's interpreting that one line, and I interpret it a similar way, as like anti-democrat. But I mean, like, yeah, there are fat fucking people on welfare, bro, that take advantage of the system. Of course, it's much more complicated than that, right? I blame the system more than the fat people on it. I'm fat. Like addictive food substances, you know, food deserts, etc. You know, lack of food, lack of education in general, lack of nutritional education. I understand that, but I think it's okay to be like, yo, there's people who take advantage of the welfare system. It's true. And I don't like them. You know, I don't like. And the people who take advantage of the welfare system the most are rich people who will employ, like Walmart, who will employ people for money that they, for not enough money, so that they have to be on the welfare system. So how do you like that? Corporate welfare, it's a huge issue, right?
Which is just a feigned concern over money being wasted. Oh, that's just wasteful. You're just throwing money down the toilet, feeding these people who are fat. Feeding these lazy, good for nothing. When, like, if you want to talk about excess spending and waste in this country, monetarily speaking, fat people on welfare is like toward the bottom rung. A much larger portion of our overall budget as a country goes toward defense spending, goes toward wars, goes toward places like the Pentagon throwing cash left and right with no accountability whatsoever. And also our healthcare system, which, mind you, we pay more for that per capita than any country that actually has a socialized healthcare system. That is all waste. That is all your tax dollars going down the drain. That is literally the government burning your money in your face. Sure. Going deeper here, well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bag of fudge rounds. Honestly, there's more. Somebody
said, and I don't know if this is true, that guy used to be like short and fat, the guy who made this video or made the song. And so like that was talking about him being on welfare, but I don't know if that's true.
Than enough money in the U.S. budget to...
Why didn't he call out U.S. military spending in his frustration song? I think it's because he's a normal person, human being, that's not like terminally online. No, but all jokes aside, it's probably because people are going to complain about the things that are most present to them, most around them. So he's going to be like, okay, I see more like poor people on welfare taking advantage of the system. That you're going to see more poor people taking advantage of the system than military people taking advantage of the system. I think that the military wasteful spending of the military is not something that you see on like a day-to-day in your life. Like you're going to see lazy people taking advantage of welfare more, because I've seen them before. I know people that do it. Plenty of people I know that do it. you're going to see people who take advantage of welfare more in your like day-to-day life than you're going to see that. Like that's just kind of like something that's going to end up happening. I think that's why he talks about it.
Everyone enough fudge rounds to the point where we'll just all die and go into a diabetic coma, which comparatively would be money better spent than on another unnecessary invasion, a bunch of military bases that do essentially nothing, or I don't know, just...
Well, let's not pretend that like the military bases don't do anything. Having a presence in another country can be a very positive thing. Like, let's be very clear. Sometimes it can be difficult to differentiate between... Damn. It can sometimes be difficult to make to differentiate between like good and bad spending because we have no confidence left in the United States, but other countries want us to be there. It can be a positive, helpful thing. Being available in case there's some kind of an invasion is always a good thing to be prepared. I don't think it's necessarily bad to have some of these things, but
just putting that money into the pockets of price gouging big pharma CEO assholes. So to put it clearly, if your worry right now for your average person in this country is how far their dollar goes, how much money they're making, and you're thinking about like, where does that come from? Where does that problem originate? What is the solution? And your head first goes to fat people on welfare, bro, your priorities are fucked, because the issues and the problems you're talking about would still persist even if there wasn't a single person who was fat and on welfare. Young men are putting themselves...
Yeah. It is interesting to see how like disconnected some people are from from the average normal people, what they think and feel.
6 feet in the ground because all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. Which, again, I don't think this is a bad sentiment to convey, but I think Oliver Anthony has the wrong target in his sights when it comes to like what is creating that inequity and what is creating that lack of opportunity. It's not fat people eating sweet treats that may have been paid for with EBT. Finishing things up with the chorus, and yeah, he's singing about how, these rich men north of Richmond, they want all that total control. The irony is not lost on me that the origins of, these bad North-South relations draw back to the want for control and ownership of literal human beings. But yeah, reading through this, I'm not really surprised to see this track popping off with the groups of people that it is, because again, it's really kind of drawing back to the same old story, the same old bullshit of North versus South, but it's just putting it in a slightly...
Yeah, again, we know now because we listened to the guy make his video that like that's not what this is about. I think he's just referring to rich people in DC, like across party lines. But again, I think that it's difficult. I think that the guy himself who made the song got put in a camp because he's a Southern guy that makes country music. And so I don't necessarily blame it, but knowing what we know now, it is like insufferable. It's insufferable. Is that the right word? To hear Anthony Fantino fucking virtue signaling about this, but it's not really virtue signaling because that's what he actually thinks, and I get it. Blah 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 blah.
Subtler
Pingle World's gonna die.
Some of you may be watching this video reacting, thinking, Anthony, why are you covering this? It's just like a right-wing country song. There's a million of them. But I think it's worth exploring and talking about the fact that the right-wingification of country music has long been a political project that dates back to the Nixon administration. It's not just a post-9/11 thing, as some Zoomers and younger millennials seem to think. And because the genre has been completely and utterly co-opted and corrupted, stuff like what Oliver Anthony is singing here is very well received, as we are seeing from the views and the virality of this track. And sadly, for a moment, while there was a part of me that was really excited to, see some of these more underground and alternative country artists coming up and gaining a bigger voice in the internet age, what I think we're kind of, witnessing now is that the internet is also platforming some of the also fringe, but not quite as fringe as, Adeem the artist, some of the fringe right-wing factions and elements of the genre. And that's how you're getting tracks like this and Zmij Aldin's, small town track popping off. Because as terrible and as stereotypical and as garbage as stuff like Florida Georgia Line is, for example, they know at the very least to stay away from rhetoric like this. They're not coming on to talk about like, North-South relations or anything like that. Last thing I'll say is, look, at the end of the day, I don't think Oliver Anthony and a lot of the people identifying with this track are inherently bad people. And it's not like the struggles that they're singing about or giving a voice to are completely invalid or not real. Much of the time they are real, and the fact that we're not addressing them as a country is part of what causes so much social rot in the US. The issue is these problems are being highlighted and then the blame gets laid onto different alternative and completely unrelated targets. You're having a hard time getting a job. The price of milk is going up. Your dollar doesn't pay for shit right now. And you know what? That's because of immigrants. That's because of people who are lazy and on welfare. It's because all of those elites up in the North, they don't like you. When in reality, if you want...
Well, that last part is kind of real. Dude, I'm getting fucking twisted by this fucking game. That last part is kind of real. So, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean?
To wake up tomorrow with better pay, better opportunities, better everything, the answer is to protest and get out in the street. The answer is to unionize and organize.
Okay, protesting, getting out in the street, if you don't know what you're protesting. This is the waste, but okay.
Against your boss, for example, until you're getting better pay. People who are in the same economic class as you, but look differently or dress differently or are a different orientation, whatever. Those people are not the reason that life sucks for you. So again, the track does lend a legit voice to some real struggles, but any kind of solution-based focus from there is just misdirected into other just non sequitur crap, which is pretty much a hallmark of right-wing anything. Get mad and get afraid over stuff that doesn't really impact your life in any way. All right, that's all I'm going to say about this track.
All right, so I'm assuming Anthony doesn't do an update.
Okay, hey everyone, Anthony. It sort of seems as like a community. Those are very odd and very weird parameters for. Okay, hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Don't mind the background, looking a little shifted on various spots and places right now. We are things are moving, which I'm very excited about, hyped about, in fact. But yes, Austin and I thought it would make sense to do a video today where I'm responding to a little bit of lore, a little bit of a question about my person, me individually. Early on and over the years, a lot of you have known me to, be a pretty.
All right, yeah, he didn't respond to it. Yeah, I mean, his video missed a mark because he doesn't really know. He's just kind of wrong about what he's saying. But again, you don't have the clarification from the one guy, so I guess I get it. Matt Walsh instantly had like a video. Let's see what Matt Walsh's perspective is. It's going to be, I mean, I don't like Matt Walsh because he's a racist. So, who like legitimately and unironically and undisputably thinks that like Hispanic people are less than white people. He's already admitted that as much. So, let's see what this fucking idiot has to say about, let's say.
Well, this segment, the Daily Cancellation, is special to me. Indeed, I think it's probably special to the entire world. Some will even say that it is sacred. And I consider it a privilege, but also an important responsibility to cancel someone at the end of every show, every day, forever, until the end of time. But on rare occasion, very, very rare occasion, I find it necessary to dedicate this portion of the show to something other than canceling some evildoer. And usually this happens when there's something else I want to talk about for 10 minutes, but I can't find any other space for it in the show. So that's how we end up here. Anyway, the point is that today is one of those very rare days. So I want to tell you about a man named Oliver Anthony. He's a blue-collar guy, lives way out in the sticks in Virginia, basically off the grid. In his free time, he likes to play and sing songs that he writes. For the past few years, he's been occasionally recording his songs on his phone, posting them to his YouTube channel, which had, I don't know, maybe a few hundred subscribers. And his videos would get maybe a few dozen or a few hundred views. But that has changed rather suddenly over the last few days. This man and his music have gone massively viral, thanks primarily to one song of his called Rich Men North of Richmond, which made its way from YouTube to Twitter, where it caught fire. And the video of him performing the song while standing in the woods in front of his deer stand has now been viewed millions of times. The song is currently trending nationwide on Twitter, and he's even had public offers, including from our friend John Rich, to produce and distribute a studio album. Oliver Anthony.
I'm assuming that his friend is like just conservative, which is why he probably didn't take it. Maybe that's what the guy was referring to when he said like this is how the music industry is really shitty.
And he has gone from full obscurity, about as obscure as a musical artist can possibly be,
basically off the grid, yeah,
playing songs in the woods by himself, to musical fame.
It sounds like a little bit of a. It sounds a little pointed what you're saying. It sounds a little rude.
In the span of like 2 days, and it's a great story. The best part is the song that has driven all of this. Okay. And there are a few points to make about that. But first, let's play a clip of the song. Here it is.
I've been selling my soul.
We heard this already. Blah 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 blah. Wow, a clip of the song, huh? He plays the entire song.
Okay, so that's a clip of it. Now, first, needless to say, I love the song. This is my kind of music. I can listen to this sort of stuff all day. Just a guy with a beard standing in the woods, singing about his troubles and playing the guitar. That's my vibe.
Is that the men that you're into, Matt, or what?
As the kids would say. It's also what all country music should sound like, instead of sounding as it so often does, like generic pop music with a slight twang. Most country music these days, like all other kinds of popular music, sound like it was, sounds like it was made by an algorithm, not a person.
That's what pop means, popular. Huh, I didn't even think about that.
And this song, on the other hand, sounds raw and real and human. But it's interesting that a song like this has become an internet sensation, because normally when you hear about a song that's gone viral, you assume that it must be Taylor Swift singing for the 90th time about one of her ex-boyfriends, or maybe another rap song about the female anatomy or whatever. You imagine a song that people can dance to in TikTok videos, which they record in public somewhere, like at the grocery store, while confused shoppers look on. You don't necessarily imagine a low-tech, low-budget recording of a folk song where a bearded guy stands in the woods and sings about the pain of being a working-class American.
Okay.
So why has this one caught on? Well, I think there are two reasons. First of all, it's just good music. Oliver Anthony has raw talent, and sometimes the combination of good music and raw talent is hard to ignore.
Okay.
Second, it's the message. Anthony is singing about the forgotten American, the working class man who breaks his back all day, only to have his pockets picked by the IRS, while the people in charge of this country ignore his concerns and spit in his face whenever he tries to convey them. Okay. He's speaking up for people who don't have a voice. And although there's real poetry in his lyrics, he's expressing those concerns using the same language. that they would use. Innovation Refunds has been helping small business.
Whoa, innovation refunds. That's my language, dude. Holy moly. Most of this video is just like nothing.
Whatever you give will be doubled. Now, we hear so much about the need for representation in our culture, but the fact is that there are millions of people who are not represented anywhere. Not in media, not in Hollywood, not in popular music, not in government, nowhere. And those are the people who look and live like Oliver Anthony. It's also worth noting, I think it's interesting, those lines, that's why I wanted to play that much of it so you could hear the lines at the end. The lines about the welfare state. This song is being called a populist anthem, which it is. I think it may become the protest song.
That's not really like a positive thing, being populist. Populist, being I don't know. Populist usually refers to something that's like very popular with people. It doesn't necessarily mean that it means anything. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it actually is effective. It just means like, oh, it appeals to people. Being like a populist isn't necessarily like a good thing. A person, especially a politician, who strives to appeal to the ordinary people who feel that their concerns are disregarded by establishment groups. Yeah, so it's usually more about striving to appeal to people's concerns that's concerns that people feel like are their concerns. So,
song of this generation. But conventional wisdom says that attacking entitlements, attacking welfare is not populist. In fact, we're told, if you really care about people like Oliver Anthony, you should defend entitlement programs and insist that we should continue spending hundreds of billions on them.
Well, yeah, we should continue to defend. I mean, I wouldn't call them welfare programs because they're beneficial for all of us. You know, like it makes no sense to me to not want to support poor people. You want a safety net. You want to like try to, and again, I think that we need reformation in our welfare programs, right? I'm not going to lie about that. But you should be trying to support these welfare programs because you want the people that are doing the worst in your society to not, first of all, you don't want them to go too far down because then they're going to revolt. And second of all, you want to give everybody an opportunity to have decent enough education to be able to succeed in life. You know, there's better things to cry about instead of welfare. Again, I think reformation, I'm a UBI guy. I think UBI would be phenomenal as one of the steps to reformation. But it's not the main thing that's like destroying the country. Okay. But okay.
But the truth is that guys like Anthony, they work all day to provide for themselves and their own families. They're not fans of the fact that their money is being taken from them, food is being taken out of their children's mouths in order to prop up this system of entitlements that really functions as nothing more than a vote-buying scheme for Democrats.
No. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this thing called the Great Depression. We got out of that because of welfare. Welfare is an objective need in our country, or else our country fails. And to be honest with you, more Republicans are on welfare programs than Democrats. And you might be like, that can't be true. I don't even have to look up the statistics. And I'll tell you why. If you look at the top 10 donor states, I believe all 10, maybe 9 of them, are Democrat. Now, you're probably sitting there saying, what the frick is a freaking donor state, Papa Gut? A donor state is a state that gives more money to the federal government than they receive back in federal money, right? New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, California, right? I think that it's like 75 for every they get back, like, so in my state we get back like 75 cents for every dollar we give. Florida, I believe, is the biggest we'll call, I don't know, leech state, whatever, is the state that gets the most. And what this means is that we give money to the federal government, and the federal government takes that money and it distributes it to people in the country. I think it's a great idea. But that's why places like Florida can have horribly low taxes, because they're being subsidized by people with more money in our state. And so it's something that people really need to keep in mind, is that like Republicans are probably the biggest beneficiaries of this. The conservative states are the ones that are like benefiting this more than anything else. And so, like, instead of writing it off and be like, no, you're being silly or whatever, like, no, this is like a very real thing. You know, conservatives benefit more from it. I don't know what else to tell you. It's just a fact. So, cope and seethe, conservatives.
Okay, go up to almost any guy at any bar in any blue-collar part of the country and ask them about welfare, and they will say something very similar to what Anthony says in that song.
Okay, and they might, and that doesn't mean that they're right. So,
almost all of them will. And yet Republicans are afraid to even mention the subject for fear that they'll lose the votes of the very people who are being...
Republicans won't shut the fuck up about trying to cut different programs like that. What are you talking about? They're afraid to... What are you talking about? They're just saying silly things that aren't real.
...scammed by this system.
What?
I said there are 2 reasons why the song's popular. Actually, there are 3, so I lied. Because there's something else too.
What's that,
It's not just that the message is resonating. I think there's something deeper to it. It's authenticity.
What is
People
it,
in this country
Matthew?
are
Let me know.
starved for authenticity.
They're gonna-
Everything is fake, right? Everything around us is fake. The music is all basically computer generated. The movies are full of CGI.
Sure, yes.
Most of what you see on the news is fake. Most of what you find on social media is fake.
Only
We've
Fox,
got
baby.
filters and Photoshop and AI and deep fakes.
Okay.
We're just surrounded.
Hey, listen, some of that deep fake porn is not bad. But I didn't say that. I've actually never seen it before in my entire life. Somebody else saw it, I think, or something. I don't know.
By artificiality. We're drowning in it. And that's why a video of a guy pouring his heart out while he plays his guitar in the woods in front of his deer stand with his dogs laying there in the grass and the cicadas buzzing in the background. That's why it resonates with people. It's like it's a glass of cool water for people who are thirsting for something real. And that's why it went viral.
Wow. Beautiful stuff.
And also, again, it's just good music. It's simply good music. And maybe it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. And for all of those reasons, Oliver Anthony is today certainly not canceled. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening.
Yeah, so I'm happy to be over with this segment. It was interesting. I liked the guy's song. I thought he was great. I think he appeals to people in a positive way. I don't think that his song is anti-democrat or well, I don't think his song is party line. I think it's about, all parties. I think it's supposed to just shit on the government, and that's a pretty poggers thing for me. Obviously, Anthony Fantino and Matt are going to interpret it the way they want, but frankly, I can understand the way they interpreted it that way, because some of it was a little bit vague, I guess you'd say. I got the similar notion that it was like an anti-Democrat and like a pro-Republican thing, so I can't shit on him too much for that. So yeah,